Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom Weekly from the Greater Orlando Center for Spiritual Living. Practical spiritual insights to help you live a more joyful, empowered, and grounded life.
I am open and receptive to all that supports this new clarity. So it is. Oh, and now Reverend Cindy.
I want to share a story about synchronicity. If you've been here long, you'll know that I consider all these surprising synchronicities to be God's signature on whatever endeavor they apply to. Just under 2 weeks ago, December 29th, I checked. I responded to a request from Jonathan about the themes for the ongoing so that he could plan music. I told him the theme for this month is New Beginnings. Several ideas had been rocking around on December 29th. I had to make them concrete. New beginnings. And today's lesson would be New Beginnings Allow Us to Grow. And the spotlight today would be on expansion. Now, all I really knew on December 29th was that I really needed to make sure you knew about this new spiritual living circle, because we hadn't talked about it much, and it's really kind of a big deal. So that led me to expansion and growth. Last week on Sunday, we had the White Stone ceremony, and each and every one of us was asked to listen to and find a word that would identify Go CSL for 2026 and return the stones to us. Wednesday, I'm here at the center. I've been to yoga. I'm setting up to go in to do our weekly visioning session. Now, most of you know what that is, but in case you don't, now that we use vision and visioning, and these words are kind of mean a lot of different things. Today we're going to do vision boards, which is uploading information, kind of making our decisions and telling spirit what we want. Visioning is an opportunity to go the other way, to download. We get into kind of a quiet meditative space. You can do this alone or together in a group. And we ask a question and listen to hear what spirit has to say in response. So the hard part of that is coming up with your topic, right? The first thing you got to do, what is the question we're going to ask today? I happen to be sitting right next to where we put those stones for now till we get a fancier display case. They're in a basket. And I said, well, why don't I look at the stones and maybe they'll give us inspiration. First two stones I pulled out said expansion. Now, here we've already set this up as a topic, so it was pretty obvious that was going to be our topic. So the question was, what is Spirit's highest vision for the expansion of Go CSL? And by the way, I went through all the stones later, and there were 5 stones that had either expansion or growth, and it's really 6 listings because one stone had expansion on one side and growth on the other side. So that's about 10% of all the stones, and none of them were mine. I didn't put that word in there. So there's an obvious synchronistic God signature on this concept of expansion. Last week, I spoke a bit about why this time of year gives us such a special focus on new beginnings. There's all of this attention and activity going on all around us in the world, focused on this new beginning time of the year and making these changes and shifts. So we get kind of turbocharged in making changes in our own life. So what I want to focus on this week is more about the opportunities that these new beginnings give us for growth. And it sounds really obvious and easy. Yeah, time for new beginnings. I'll change. Everything will be better. But you know what? We don't always categorize new and change as good. We are actually pretty resistant to change of any sort. If you really think about it, we live in what we call comfort zones. We have a comfort zone that's our familiar space. It's our familiar routine. We think our regular thoughts. We have our regular reactions. And we don't challenge ourselves to stretch the size of our comfort zone. And I noticed I even wrote stretch, S-T, I stretched out the word. And I think the reason for that is the first time anyone ever told me about comfort zones, they drew a picture. And it was this bubble and the little stick figures in there. And something the stick figure wants is outside the bubble. And they've got to try to expand to go and capture that thing and bring it in to their comfort zone. And they're pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to get out. And so this is the image I always hold of comfort zones. And I do have to say, I think as we get older, maybe our walls get a little thicker, harder to push on. Our youth person is going, she wants to catch them early. Wants to catch them early and keep those thin walls. Now, comfort zones are not always comfortable. They're familiar. And familiar can be pretty limiting. It can also be painful. It can be depressing. It can be scary. It could just be blah. It can be peaceful and calm when what we really want is exciting and challenging. It can be challenging when what we really want is peaceful and calm. Other people might look at us and go, God, you're in such a beautiful, comfortable place, and it's not comfortable for us. But every one of us has our own unique comfort zone, and we built it over many, many years. And so it does take a decision and action to grow it. Your comfort zone may be the zone that you live in, but it may not be the zone you want to live in. So if that's the case, a new beginning is required to grow. Something new has to happen to change the familiar. What we want to invite in usually has to do with new experiences, new emotions, new feelings, new people. Those are what we want to draw in to the comfort zone that are out there somewhere. It has to be new because it requires a change in our consciousness. I did it again. I was just telling Lisa, I go consciousness like it lives here, like it's not all of this together, right? Tendency, old habit. I'll work on that. But you know, there's a quote that's attributed to Einstein. I've checked and they say you can't really prove it. But anyway, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you just keep doing the same thing. So we have to have a new thought to go forward and change and grow the zone. We have to change our thinking to change our experience. We have to make constant new beginnings. Every moment is an opportunity for a new beginning. If we don't like what we're cooking up, then we have to try some new recipes, mix together some new ingredients. And that brings me back to the visioning session that we had on Wednesday. It led to a metaphor that I'm going to share with you today. One of the people on the call got the answer to a question, this: I see an image of sourdough, and it's in a little container, and the lid comes off, and the sourdough leaps out and grows. And this represents the potential waiting to expand now that the lid is off. Now that image seemed to really resonate with the group of us that was together. So I thought, I need to know more about that. Well, I got to tell you something. I am not a frequent baker. I know a little bit about, there's something out there about yeast and rising and punching down. I remember years ago, there was something going around the office. I think there in the Midwest, they called it Homer. They give you Homer, which turned out to be a little ball of sourdough starter and a list of instructions and things you had to do forever, about that long, to get some sourdough bread. Well, I got to tell you, like many plants in my lifetime, Homer's branch of the sourdough starters passed beyond at my house. It passed from this plane of existence. So I needed some help in figuring out what this tie-in between sourdough bread and the growth of our center is. So I decided to do a new beginning. I broke out of my comfort zone. My relationship with AI is very similar to my relationship with baking. I know a little bit about it. I have become rather fond of putting in a search and having AI come up with a nice little summary at the top of my search. But I had not made that step to asking it directed questions. I had not used ChatGPT. And there are people all around me doing wonderful things with it. I've seen your curriculum, and Joey's blogging with it, and Rev Peggy sent me something about conscious aging, and oh my goodness, ChatGPT is pretty smart. So I thought I'd take a stab, and I gave it a question. Create a speech comparing Rising Sourdough to an organization on the verge of growth. Use New Thought terminology. I didn't know what I'd get. I got something pretty cool. So I'm going to share a little bit straight from ChatGPT and then add some commentary about the things I want us to talk about today. So here we go. Imagine a bowl on a counter, quiet and unassuming. Inside it is flour and water, nothing that looks extraordinary. Yet within that mixture lives a principle older than time itself, life responding to consciousness. Wow, ChatGPT is spiritual. So all new beginnings do start in consciousness. Holmes said, life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker that which he thinks into it. You think ingredients for bread, and bread manifest. You think ingredients for your dream, if you get the right ingredients, your dreams manifest. We just have to keep finding those right ingredients and make the finished product that we're actually interested in creating. We have to think anew to experience the new. That quiet and unassuming dough made me think about our tendency to think sometimes that something extraordinary, something singular has to happen. We wait to do anything until all the conditions are perfect. We need to get more educated, more fit, more thin, busier, less busy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We might give up on some of these things because we've already passed by a requirement, right? If the requirement is that you be 20 and you're 40, you can't be 20. You can rethink whether the requirement of 20 has any validity. You can question why. You can question where. Does it always apply? Who makes these decisions? But you can't change that little piece. And then there are terrible requirements we put on each other, on ourselves, not on ourselves. You know, the ones like, I must be worthy. I must sacrifice. I must earn my good. I must beg for my good. Or the nots. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not smart enough. Here at Go CSL, we might even, with all of our training, think X, Y, or Z has to happen before we can grow. And why is that? Aren't we already offering open arms, loving acceptance, and a transformative philosophy and the information about it? Are those not great ingredients already? But we let that stuff get in our way. ChatGPT says, sourdough does not rise because we force it. It rises because the conditions are aligned. We mix the ingredients, yes, but then we wait. We trust. We allow. And in that allowing, unseen forces go to work. Now here in SOM, we are all about unseen forces and alignment, right? That's part of what we're all about. In our symbol, it's over there, it's back behind me. This is that middle section. Now, we teach that, and we teach it sometimes with the plant soil, seed soil plant analogy, right? So the intention, the seed, goes into the middle of it. And that's the creative substance. That's the unseen force. And that's the part we doubt because we can't see it. We're waiting for that shoot to appear without the trust that it will sometimes until it does. We get very good at describing the laws of the universe. We know that they must work as they work without prejudice all the time, everywhere. We know we have to plant the seeds we want in order to produce what we want. When we know, we can tell you can't plant tomato seeds and get green beans. You have to pull out the weeds. You have to fertilize. So we know that it works the same in our lives. But sometimes we hope it won't. I heard my chuckle. We pray to get a crop we want, even though we know we planted different seeds. We pull up the shoots to see if they are what we meant to get, if Spirit knew how to give us what we asked. We get impatient with the process, with those unseen forces. So ChatGPT again. At first, progress feels invisible. The culture is forming, ideas are fermenting, energy is gathering. To the untrained eye, nothing is happening. But New Thought teaches us that creation always begins in the unseen realm. Mind precedes manifestation, consciousness precedes form. The sourdough is responding to its inner knowing. The yeast doesn't rush. It doesn't compare itself to other loaves. Smart yeast. It simply expresses its nature when the environment is receptive. Likewise, an organization aligned with purpose does not grow by pressure alone. It grows by clarity of vision, unity of thought, and coherence of belief. So our task is working on aligning those conditions even before we see the evidence. And when we know we've aligned the conditions appropriately, we wait in absolute confidence that the unseen forces are doing their work. Our task then is first to decide what kind of bread we're trying to bake. That's a tough one. It's good news that there's this whole realm of possibilities, but it gets difficult to choose sometimes out of all the possibilities that are out there for us. It makes me think of this FOMO thing, what fear of missing out that's come about because of social media. We don't want to commit to any one thing because something better might come along, or we're afraid other people are having a better time than we are, and we judge our own lives negatively because we're not doing the kind of made-up, fancily lit life that others are projecting as their reality. We are constantly a choice. We get to choose and choose again, so just choose. You get to choose again. This is not a one-shot deal. And I have found in my own life that there are so many things that can bring me joy. Why? Because I let them. Because I try, like that sourdough, to keep my conditions such that I can rise whenever the opportunity presents itself. And that brought me back to the lid thing. Remember in the first vision, the image, there was a lid that had to come off, and ChatGPT didn't get that. It didn't automatically assume my lid. So I went back and I said, okay, now it's got a lid on it. And Ernest Holmes is the person I want to hear from. So here's what ChatGPT said after that refinement. Then comes the moment when the container is opened, or we finally expand our comfort zone, right? And suddenly the expansion appears dramatic. The dough breathes, it rises visibly. But Ernest Holmes reminds us that what looks sudden is never sudden at all. Every thought sets the law in motion, and it returns to us multiplied. The opening of the container is not the cause of the rise. It is the release that was already prepared in consciousness. Let me read that to you again. This is when I really decided ChatGPT was smarter than me on days, right? The opening of the container is not the cause of the rise. It is the release of what was already prepared in consciousness. So the moment the obstacle clears, everything goes into motion. Still ChatGPT. So it is when an organization opens its message to the world, and let me interject, or we get ready to make change. The launch, the growth, the recognition may seem instantaneous, but it is the result of long-held thought, disciplined belief, and faithful expectancy. In science of mind, this is the law responding to a clarified mental equivalent. Our responsibility is not to lift the lid too early, nor to keep it closed out of doubt. Don't lift it too early. Don't keep it closed because of doubt. Our work is to maintain consciousness. That's all we really have to do. To know, as Holmes taught, that faith is a mental attitude so convinced of its own idea that it acts as though it were already true. Give that again. Faith is a mental attitude so convinced of its own idea that it acts as though it were already true. We hold the vision steady, we trust the law, we allow the process. So I want you to know that GoCSL is here to support the consciousness training, the disciplined belief, the faithful expectancy, and you and we as an organization require to rise. We will keep expanding. Word of the week, right? We will keep expanding so you can keep expanding your horizons, stretching your comfort zone. And I want to wrap this up. So there's all this, I've done all this sourdough and recipes and ingredients and thinking, and I thought, well, I should have a recipe then, shouldn't I? I should have a recipe. And I was about to go off with trying to, some great thing about a total and complete life, and I thought, that's different for every one of us. I can't do one that works for everyone. What I just came to, I decided, let's ask for a recipe for a happy day. Nobody would be against having a happy day. So here is ChatGPT's recipe for a happy day. First cut, no editing. First of all, it's called Recipe for a Happy Day, and it's got a cute little colorful rainbow right beside it. It says it serves one present moment with plenty to share. One present moment with plenty to share. The prep time is upon waking, and the cook time is all day, gently. Ingredients, 1 cup of gratitude, and it must be freshly noticed, not forced. 2 tablespoons of conscious choice. A generous splash of self-compassion. 1 teaspoon trust in life's goodness. 1 pinch of playfulness. 1 open heart full of expectation of good. There's optional garnishes, laughter, kindness, and quiet moments. Here are the instructions. Begin the day by setting your intention. Silently affirm that today is guided by divine order and unfolding good. Stir gratitude into your awareness. Notice what already works, however small. This activates the law of increase. Choose your thoughts deliberately. When an unhelpful thought arises, gently replace it with one aligned with peace, love, or possibility. Season generously with compassion, especially toward yourself. Remember, growth is happening even when it's invisible. Trust the process, and trust, by the way, is the word I put on a stone. Release the need to control outcomes and allow life to meet you with support. Serve joy moment by moment. Happiness is not postponed, it is practiced now. I wish you a happy baking every day.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Spiritual Wisdom Weekly. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, follow us on social media at Greater Orlando Center for Spiritual Living, and support our work, including this podcast, at gocsl.org. Until next time, take good care and keep growing in spirit.